They say you can tell a woman's story by the sound of her kitchen. My mama's pots used to sing on Sunday mornings. That steady clatter of cast iron, the low hum of her gospel radio, the rhythm of something sacred in every stir. I grew up believing love was poured into gravy and trust was baked right into the cornbread. Now, at 52, I stand in my own kitchen, trying to bring that same sound back. The walls don't hum like Mama's bid. Too much silence in this house since Marvin left. My husband of 27 years packed his things last spring and moved in with a woman half my age. I still can't say her name without tasting rust in my mouth. I tell myself I'm cooking to keep busy, not to feel the ache. But as I chop onions, the tears come easy. Not just from the knife. The smell of sweet onions and bell peppers pulls me backward to a time when family meant warmth, not wounds. My daughter Kayla is supposed to come home today. First time since her daddy left. She's 28, strong-willed, with a voice that can slice through any room. We've been distant lately. She says I'm too traditional, too quiet about what I need. Maybe she's right. Maybe silence is what broke this house apart. The clock ticks too loud. Outside, the magnolia branches scrape against the window. That sound always reminds me of the nights I waited for Marvin to come home from late meetings. Funny how the truth hides in plain sight, like a stain under old paint. I check the oven. Cornbread rising golden, just how he liked it. Old habits die slow. Even now, I can't cook without setting a plate for him. I hate myself for that. Then, the front door creaks. Mama? Kayla's voice. Steady, grown, with a sharp edge I barely recognize. In here, baby, I call out, wiping my hands on a dish towel. She steps in, tall and radiant, her curls pinned back, wearing a tailored jacket and heels too high for comfort. She looks like success, the kind I dreamed for her when I was still working double shifts at the hospital. But her eyes are cool, cautious. Smells good, she says, scanning the room. You cooking all this for just us? Sunday dinner, still Sunday dinner. Whether it's 2 people or 10. She nods, lips pressed tight. You still setting his plate too? The question hits me like a slap. I swallow hard, force a smile that doesn't quite land. Habit, I whisper. That's all. Kayla leans against the counter, crossing her arms. Mama, you gotta stop letting ghosts sit at your table. I turn away before she can see my face crumble. Eat first, I say softly. Then we can talk. But deep down, I already know. Today's dinner ain't about food. It's about the truth I've been dodging, the betrayal I pretended wasn't mine to confront. And before this night ends, something in this house will break, either the silence or what's left of my heart. By the time I pull the cornbread from the oven, the house smells like it used to, warm, buttery, safe. It's strange how scents can lie. They make you forget how broken a place is, even when the cracks are still showing. Kayla sets the table without asking. She places the plates slow, deliberate, like each movement means something. I watch her from the counter. The gold hoops in her ears catch the light, same as mine used to before I stopped wearing jewelry when Marvin started spending weekends at the office. She glances up. You gonna sit, Mama? I nod and wipe my hands again, though they're clean. My hands always need something to do when words start feeling dangerous. We sit. Just the 2 of us, across from that empty chair. I used to think it was just furniture. Now it feels like a ghost taking up space, breathing between us. Kayla spoons greens onto her plate but doesn't eat. You know I saw Daddy last week, right? My fork freezes midair. Oh, I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. She nods. At the mall. He was with her, that woman. There it is. The sentence I've been pretending not to expect. I press my napkin into my lap, stare at the steam rising from the pot roast. You don't need to tell me about her, baby. Kayla's tone softens, but not enough. Mama, you can't keep pretending. He moved on. You should too. My eyes sting, but I won't let them see me cry. Not again. You think it's that easy? No, I don't, she says quietly, but I think you let him take too much of you. Her words slice deep because they're true. I did let him take too much of me. My time, my peace, my youth. I gave him everything and then learned too late that love alone don't make a man stay. I stayed because I believed in family, Because your grandma taught me that a home is worth fighting for. Kayla leans forward. But what if the person you're fighting for already surrendered, Mama? What then? I don't answer. I can't. The truth sits thick in my throat. We eat in silence after that, the kind of silence that hurts. Every clink of a fork sounds like thunder. Then she says it, soft but certain. I have something to tell you. I look up. Her eyes are wet but steady. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, but Daddy asked me for help. With money. My heart stops cold. What do you mean? She looks down. He's in trouble. Some bad investments, I guess. He said you wouldn't help him, but he thought maybe I could. He said he'd pay me back once I slam my fork down. He what? Kayla flinches. Mama, please. He left me for that woman, and now he's asking my daughter to bail him out? Kayla nods, tears forming. I told him no, but what? I met with him, Mama. The room spins. I can hear my pulse pounding in my ears. Betrayal always sounds like this. Loud, endless, suffocating. You went behind my back. I whisper. She shakes her head. I just wanted to understand what happened. I wanted to hear his side. His side? There it is again. The man who ruined everything, still finding a way to divide what's left. I stand up, hands trembling. You think he deserves understanding after what he did to us? Kayla rises too. Mama, he's still my father, and I'm still your mother. I shout. The words echo off the walls like thunder rolling through the house. She looks at me, hurt, angry, but mostly confused. You can hate him if you want, but I won't. I can't. I feel my throat close. I turn away, gripping the counter for balance. Then maybe you don't know what love costs yet. Her voice softens. Maybe I'm just not ready to pay the same price you did. The silence that follows feels final, like a door shutting between us. Outside, the magnolia tree bends in the wind, leaves scraping the window again, as if reminding me that even strong roots can ache under too much storm. And deep down, I know this dinner isn't the end of it. It's only the beginning of what's been waiting to fall apart.
That night, after Kayla went upstairs to the guest room, I sat alone at the table, staring at the empty plate still set across from me. The air felt heavy, like even the house was tired of holding secrets. I used to love the quiet. It meant peace. Now it just felt like punishment. I reached for my glass of sweet tea, but my hand stopped halfway. Something about Kayla's voice earlier, the guilt in it, wouldn't let me rest. I tried telling myself it was just worry, that she was caught in the middle, that she didn't mean to betray me. But the way she said I met with him kept echoing. Old habits die hard, and suspicion has a way of creeping back into a woman's bones once it's been there before. So I went to my bedroom, opened the dresser drawer where I keep all my unwanted truth, bills, old letters, the keys to a life I thought was safe. Tucked beneath a stack of insurance papers was an envelope, cream-colored, folded twice, my name on the front in Kayla's handwriting. I froze. The envelope wasn't sealed, so I opened it. Inside was a letter, written in that neat, careful print she used in college. Mama, I didn't want to tell you until I knew for sure. Daddy's sick. He didn't want you to know because he thought it was just another lie, but I saw the papers myself. He's been diagnosed with something serious. He doesn't have much time. The room blurred. My knees nearly gave out. I sat on the edge of my bed reading those lines again and again, my breath coming in short, uneven bursts. Sick. Not much time. I thought of his voice on the phone last year. Calm, polite, cold as a stranger's. Of the way he looked through me at church that one Sunday, pretending I wasn't sitting right there. How could he be dying and still choose to lie by omission? The ache that came wasn't the anger I expected. It was something softer, heavier, grief for what was, for what could have been. But underneath that ache was something sharper, betrayal. Not from Marvin this time, but from my own child. She knew. She looked me in the eye today talking about forgiveness, talking about moving on, and she knew. I folded the letter back up, my hand shaking. When I heard footsteps upstairs, I shoved the paper into my pocket and climbed the stairs. The light under her door was still on. I didn't bother knocking. Kayla sat on the bed in her pajamas scrolling through her phone. She looked up, startled. Mama? What's wrong? I held up the letter. You tell me. Her face went pale. You went through my things? I ignored the question. How long have you known? She sighed, shoulders slumping. A few months. A few months, my voice cracked. And you thought I didn't deserve to know? He begged me not to tell you, she cried. He said he didn't want your pity. Pity? I laughed bitterly. That man broke my heart, and now you're worried about his pride? Kayla stood up, trembling. He's still my father, and whether you like it or not, I don't want to hate him when he dies. Her words cut through me like glass. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. You think I wanted to hate him, Kayla? You think that was my choice? Tears welled in her eyes. He said you'd never forgive him. He was right, I whispered. But forgiveness ain't about him anymore. It's about me and what I have left. She shook her head, sobbing now. I just wanted to fix things, Mama. I thought maybe if I helped him, we could be a family again. Family. That word hurt more than any other. I reached out, touched her arm. Baby, you can't glue together what someone else already shattered. For a long time, neither of us said anything. The only sound was the slow ticking of the clock on her nightstand. Finally, I turned toward the door. If he's dying, then I'll see him. But not for him, for me. She looked up surprised. You will? Yes, I said, because I need to look that man in the eyes one last time and tell him exactly what he took from me. I closed her door gently behind me, my heart pounding, my hands cold. Downstairs, the magnolia tree swayed against the window again. Not like before, not mournful this time. No, it sounded like a dare.
I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my chair by the window, the letter in my lap, watching the streetlights fade into the pale blue of morning. My heart was a battlefield. Anger, sorrow, confusion, all tangled up like vines that refused to let go. By sunrise, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to let that man die without hearing from me. Not just the pain he caused, but the truth I'd carried alone all these years. I dressed slow, deliberate, a pressed navy blue dress, low heels, gold earrings. My mother always said, when you face your ghosts, wear your dignity like armor. I tied my hair back, slipped the letter into my purse, and walked out into the morning air. The drive across town felt endless. The closer I got, the tighter my chest became. His neighborhood was small, quiet, one of those new developments with neat lawns and porches too perfect to be real. Funny how a man can destroy a family and still find a home that looks like peace. I parked across the street and sat there for a long minute, staring at the front door. It was painted a deep red, with a little brass knocker shaped like an angel. He never believed in angels before. Finally, I got out. My legs trembled, but I forced myself up the walkway. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I knocked, the door opened a crack, and there he was, Marvin Hayes, 60 years old but looking 20 older. His once smooth mahogany skin had gone ashy, his proud shoulders slumped beneath a gray sweater. The man who used to fill every room with noise and swagger now looked like a ghost wearing his own body. Lorraine, he whispered, disbelief flickering across his face. I held my ground. We need to talk, he hesitated, then opened the door wider. Come in. The house was quiet, too quiet. The air smelled faintly of medicine and lemon cleaner. Photos lined the walls, none of them familiar. A new life, a new story, without me. I followed him to the living room, where a blanket and pill bottles lay across the couch. He sank into a chair, motioning me to sit. I didn't. So, I said, my voice steady. This is how it ends, huh? He looked down. Kayla told you. I nodded. She shouldn't have had to carry that for you. Marvin sighed. I didn't want to burden you. Burden me? I laughed hollow. After everything you already took, what's one more thing? He winced, and for a moment, I saw the flash of the man I once loved. Proud, stubborn, always hiding behind his pride. I was wrong, he murmured. You didn't deserve what I did. Then why? I asked softly. Why the lies, Marvin? Why another woman, another life? His eyes glistened. Because I was scared. Scared of growing old. Scared of losing myself. You
You were always strong. You didn't need saving, and I needed to feel like somebody still did. I shook my head slowly. You threw away a family because you couldn't stand to see a woman stand tall. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The truth sat heavy between us. Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. I looked around, noticing the framed picture on the mantel, him with the little boy. Maybe 6 or 7. My stomach turned. "Who's that?" I asked. He looked ashamed. "My son. His name's Marcus." My throat tightened. "You had another child?" "After you left," he said quickly. "His mother's gone now. I'm all he's got." I felt the room tilt slightly. It wasn't jealousy this time. It was exhaustion. How much more could one woman lose to the same man? I took a deep breath. "You know, I came here ready to curse you, Marvin. Ready to tell you how you ruined everything. But looking at you now, I realize you already know." He looked up, tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Lorraine, for all of it. You didn't deserve any of this." I nodded, my voice soft. "You're right. I didn't. But forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. It's about what I refuse to carry anymore." He stared at me for a long time, then whispered, "You're still the strongest woman I ever known." I smiled faintly. "And you're still a man who never knew what to do with strength." I turned to leave. He called after me. "Lorraine, wait!" I paused at the door. "Thank you," he said, his voice trembling, "for coming, for letting me see you in before it's too late." I didn't look back. Goodbye, Marvin. When I stepped outside, the sunlight was blinding. I stood there on his porch, breathing in the cool morning air, and for the first time in years, I felt light, not happy, not healed, but free. Driving home, I realized something powerful. Closure doesn't come from hearing "I'm sorry." It comes from finally saying "I'm done." As the magnolia trees of my neighborhood came into view, I whispered to myself, "You did it, Lorraine. You faced the storm, and you're still standing."
When I got home that evening, the house was quiet, too quiet for a Friday. Usually by that hour, Kayla would be there, cooking something loud and laughing to some old school R&B while she worked. But tonight, the kitchen was dark, the air heavy. Only the ticking of the old wall clock filled the silence. I slipped off my shoes and sat down at the kitchen table, feeling the weight of what had just happened with Marvin. My hands were still trembling. I poured myself a glass of sweet tea, but the taste was bitter, almost metallic. Nothing felt right anymore. That's when I noticed it. The half-open drawer in the corner desk. The one I told Kayla not to use. She was always going through things, saying, "Mama, I'm just trying to organize." But that drawer held years I didn't want organized. Letters, receipts, memories better left sleeping. Something told me to check. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was exhaustion. Either way, I got up, walked over, and pulled it open. Inside, beneath a stack of old church bulletins and my late husband's death certificate, was a thick manila envelope. My name was written on the front in Kayla's handwriting. "Lord, what now?" I muttered. I sat back down, unfolded the flap, and pulled out a small stack of papers and a folded letter. The first thing I saw stopped my breath. An hospital logo. Savannah Regional Medical Center. My pulse quickened. I scanned the words until my eyes caught one line that made everything spin. Patient. Marcus Hayes. Guardian. Kayla Hayes. I froze. Marcus Hayes. That was Marvin's son, the little boy in that picture on the mantel. My mind started racing. Why would my daughter, my own daughter, be his guardian? My fingers trembled as I unfolded the letter addressed to me. "Mama, I've been keeping something from you, and I'm sorry. I know you're going to be hurt and angry, but please try to understand before you judge me. When Daddy left, I went looking for him a few years later. I wanted answers. I wanted to know why he walked away from us like we didn't matter. That's when I found out about Marcus, his son. He was just a baby then. His mother had passed, and Daddy was doing what he could, but he was sick. Even back then, I couldn't hate that little boy for how he came into this world, Mama. He didn't ask for any of this, and I couldn't stand by while a child, my little brother, suffered for Daddy's mistakes. So I helped. I've been sending money, visiting, making sure he had what he needed. I didn't tell you because I knew how deep your pain ran. I didn't want you to see it as betrayal. I just couldn't abandon him. Daddy wanted to tell you before he passed, but I asked him not to. I wanted to be the one to explain. I know this hurts, but please, don't let this destroy what's left of us. You taught me to love with grace, even when it's hard. I was just trying to follow your example. Love always, Kayla. By the time I finished reading, tears blurred the ink. I sat there for a long while, letter pressed to my chest, my body shaking. Every word carved deep. Betrayal, compassion, truth, all tangled in one knot I didn't know how to untie. So that's why she'd been so calm when I mentioned Marvin's illness. Why she didn't flinch at the thought of me going to see him. She'd already made her peace long ago. At first, the anger came roaring up. How could she keep something so big from me? How could she look me in the eye every day knowing she'd been taking care of the child born from her father's betrayal? But then, as the night stretched on, another voice spoke quietly in my heart, the same one that's guided me through every storm. She did what I raised her to do. She chose love. By the time the clock struck midnight, I wasn't angry anymore, just tired, so very tired. I folded the letter carefully and set it beside my tea. I looked around my kitchen, the same kitchen I built with my own 2 hands after Marvin left, the same one I'd fed my daughter in, prayed in, wept in. It felt smaller now, like the walls had drawn close to listen. Lord, teach me how to forgive my child the way I asked you to help me forgive her father. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew this much. Love wasn't simple. It was messy. It was painful. And sometimes it came wrapped in the very thing that broke you. I turned off the light and went to bed with Kayla's letter still on my nightstand. And before my eyes closed, I whispered to myself, maybe this story isn't about betrayal anymore. Maybe it's about the kind of love that survives it.
The next morning came slow, the kind of morning that felt too still to be ordinary. The sun poured through the curtains like it had something to say, and my chest felt heavy, tight, like the air itself knew what waited in my heart. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marvin's face and Kayla's handwriting, those loops and swirls that had spelled out the truth I wasn't ready to read. When I walked into the kitchen, Kayla was already there. She was dressed in her work clothes, a crisp white blouse and navy slacks, her curls tied back neatly. She had a cup of coffee in her hand and that same calm expression she always wore when she thought she was in control. "Moanin', Mama," she said softly. "Moanin'," I replied, voice flat. I went to the stove, poured myself coffee, and leaned against the counter. For a minute, neither of us spoke, just the hum of the refrigerator and the soft clink of her spoon against the mug. Finally, I set my cup down and turned to her. "You left me a letter." Kayla froze. "You read it?" "I did." She set her mug down carefully. "I was going to tell you, Mama. I raised a hand, stopping her. "No. Don't start with, I was going to. You had years to tell me. Years." Her eyes glistened. "I know, but I didn't want to hurt you. You had already lost so much. And you thought lying to me was protection?" My voice broke on the last word. "You let me sit here thinking that man just walked away when all along you were taking care of the child he had with someone else? Mama, please." She came closer, reaching for me. It wasn't like that. I wasn't doing it for him. I did it for Marcus. He's innocent." I stepped back. "Don't talk to me like I don't know what innocence looks like. I raised you with my own 2 hands, child. I know what it means to protect somebody. But what you did," I stopped, my throat tightening. "You broke my trust." She took a deep breath, fighting tears. "You taught me that love isn't about who deserves it. It's about who needs it. Marcus needed someone. Daddy couldn't. You wouldn't." Her words cut sharp like glass. "Wouldn't?" I snapped. "You think I wouldn't have helped that boy if you told me? You think I'd let any child suffer? I think you'd have seen his face and remembered every hurt that man caused you," she said quietly. "And I couldn't let that happen. Not to you, not to him. The room lit silent. She wasn't wrong. The thought of that little boy, of the betrayal made flesh, had haunted me for years. I used to imagine his mother, his laugh, his eyes. I'd hated him without ever seeing him. Not because of who he was, but because of what he represented. I sank into the nearest chair, my body trembling. Lord, have mercy, I whispered. Kayla knelt beside me, her voice trembling. Mama, I wasn't trying to replace you or keep secrets forever. I was just trying to fix what Daddy broke, to give some kind of meaning to all that pain. I looked at her then, really looked at her. My daughter, the same girl who used to sit on my lap after church, tracing the lines on my hands, asking why grown folk cry when they pray. She was still that girl, just older, carrying a different kind of faith, fixing what's broken. I said softly, you always did think you could save the world. She smiled through tears. Guess I get that from you. For the first time in months, I let myself laugh, just a breath of it, short and cracked, but real. Don't flatter me, child. Then I sighed, long and heavy. You should have told me. Not because I could have changed anything, but because secrets like this, they rot the soul. They eat at a home until all that's left is silence and hurt. Kayla nodded. I know. I'm sorry, Mama. I placed my hand on hers, feeling the warmth of her skin, the tremble of regret. You're my child. You made a choice from love, and I can't hate you for that. But forgiveness? I paused. It's a process. It don't come quick, and it don't come easy. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I'll wait, Mama, as long as it takes. I squeezed her hand tighter. You better believe you will. Then I stood, walked to the window and looked out at the rising sun. The magnolia tree swayed softly in the morning light. That same tree Marvin planted the year Kayla was born. Funny how life circles back like that. Roots deep and tangled, no matter how much you wish to cut them free. Behind me, Kayla whispered, Mama, would you ever want to meet him, Marcus? I didn't answer right away. I watched the light spill across the yard, golden and quiet. My heart twisted, caught between what was lost and what still might be found. Not today, I finally said, but maybe someday soon. And in that small, trembling maybe, something inside me began to heal. The first time I saw Marcus, I swear the air left my lungs. Kayla had arranged it quietly, a soft, maybe you could just stop by for lunch kind of thing. I almost said no. My pride still held tight to the edges of my heart like a fist that wouldn't unclench. But something in me, something softer, older, whispered, it's time. When I pulled into the little neighborhood park, my fingers gripped the steering wheel like it was an anchor. Kids were laughing on the swings, the smell of barbecue hung in the air, and the world felt too normal for the storm that lived inside me. Then I saw him, Marcus. He was sitting at a picnic table sketching something on a pad of paper. 14 years old, thin and tall, his hair cut close, his skin a smooth, warm brown that caught the sunlight. He had Kayla's gentle expression, but Marvin's eyes, those same deep-set honey-dark eyes that once smiled at me across the dance floor and later lied straight to my face. It hit me hard. The ache, the anger, the memory of betrayal, all of it flared up in my chest like fire. But underneath it, buried deep, was something else, something that looked a lot like mercy. Kayla spotted me and waved, her face bright but anxious. Mama, over here. I forced a smile and stepped out of the car, every movement heavy. When I got closer, Marcus looked up from his drawing, unsure whether to smile or hide. Hi, Mrs. Hayes, he said softly. His voice was polite, careful, the way kids sound when they're trying not to take up too much space. It's Miss Hayes now, I corrected gently, my voice calm. And you can call me Lorraine. He nodded, cheeks flushing. Yes, ma'am. Lorraine. For a few moments, none of us said much. The sound of children's laughter filled the air, and I felt the strangeness of it all. Standing face to face with the living reminder of everything I'd lost. Kayla handed me a bottle of water and mouthed, You okay? I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. So, I said, clearing my throat. You like to draw? Marcus lit up then, just a little. Yes, ma'am. Mostly buildings and trees, sometimes people. He held up the pad, a pencil sketch of the park, the swings, even the old oak tree by the bench. It was good, better than good. His lines had feeling, the kind of quiet grace that takes years to learn. You're talented, I said softly.
Real steady hand. Thank you, he said, looking surprised, like compliments were foreign currency. My art teacher says I got an eye for structure. Kayla smiled proudly. He's applying for a summer art camp at Savannah State. Just needs one more recommendation letter. I took a sip of water, studying him again. Marvin's eyes, my daughter's kindness, my pain, my forgiveness. Still forming, still unsure. Then Marcus spoke, his voice small. I know who you are. My heart clenched. He looked down at his hands. Aunt Kayla told me about my dad. About you. I'm sorry for everything that happened. You didn't deserve that. It was like being seen by a ghost and a child all at once. The way he said sorry, it wasn't his guilt to carry. But still, I felt something shift in the air. I reached across the table and touched his hand. The same way I used to reach for Kayla's when she was scared. His skin was warm, trembling just a little. You ain't gotta be sorry for something you didn't do, I said softly. The sins of grown folks don't belong to children. He nodded, eyes glistening. I just wanted to say it anyway. We sat like that for a moment, quiet, connected. I realized then that forgiveness wasn't a grand moment of letting go. It was 1,000 tiny choices to keep showing up, even when it hurt. Kayla excused herself to the car to grab the lunch bag, giving us space. Marcus turned back to his drawing, then looked at me again. You really like magnolia trees? He asked, pointing to the pendant around my neck. I smiled faintly. I do. They remind me of strength that doesn't shout. They bloom even after storms. He grinned. That's cool. And just like that, something cracked open inside me. Not pain, not anger, but the smallest sliver of peace. When Kayla returned, the three of us ate sandwiches and laughed at little things. It wasn't easy, it wasn't simple, but it was real. For the first time in years, I felt like I was part of something healing, not something haunted. As I got ready to leave, Marcus said quietly, "Can I come visit you sometime? Maybe see a magnolia tree." I looked into his eyes, Marvin's eyes, but softer, untouched by lies. I said yes, you can. When I drove home that afternoon, I rolled down the window. The wind rushed through, carrying the scent of summer and something lighter, something like forgiveness, learning how to breathe.
A week later, I found myself standing on my porch again, this time with a nervous kind of energy I hadn't felt in years. The magnolia tree was in full bloom, white petals opening wide against the deep green leaves, filling the air with that sweet, creamy scent that always reminded me of childhood Sundays. Kayla's car pulled up in the driveway. The doors opened, and Marcus stepped out, holding a small brown paper bag. He looked shy but hopeful, wearing a clean white polo and jeans. The sun caught his skin, that same golden brown shade that once belonged to the man who broke me and the child who healed me. "Hey, Lorraine," he said, his voice warm and careful. "Hey, baby," I replied before I could stop myself. The words slipped out naturally, the way you speak to someone who already holds a piece of your heart. He smiled wide, a real one this time. "Aunt Kayla said I could bring you something." He handed me the bag. Inside was a small sketchbook and drawing pencil set. "I thought maybe you could try drawing too. You said you like magnolia trees." I stared at it, touched in a way I didn't expect. "That's mighty thoughtful, Marcus." "Thank you." We walked to the magnolia tree together. The afternoon light spilled gold across the yard, cicadas humming in the background. I pointed to the low branch Marvin had carved our initials into decades ago. The bark had grown around it now, soft, swollen with time, but the letters still there, L+M. Marcus ran his fingers gently over the carving. "You and my dad?" I nodded slowly. "A long time ago." He didn't say anything, just looked up at the blossoms, thoughtful. "He wasn't much of a dad to me," he said after a moment, "but sometimes I wonder what kind of person he could have been if he hadn't messed up so bad." I swallowed hard. He was charming, smart, kind when he wanted to be, but he was also selfish and scared. Marcus looked at me then, eyes steady. "Guess I got some of that scared part in me." I smiled softly. Being scared ain't the same as being weak. What matters is what you do with that fear. We sat down on the porch swing together. The chain creaked gently as it swayed. For the first time in a long while, I felt like the silence between generations wasn't heavy, it was holy. Kayla brought lemonade and joined us. Watching the two of them side by side made something inside me ache and glow at the same time. My daughter and the boy she'd secretly protected, both of them shaped by love that was imperfect
but real. Marcus, I said, breaking the quiet, you ever think about what you want to do when you grow up? He grinned shyly. An architect, maybe. Or a designer. I like making things that last. I chuckled softly. You got the heart for it. This world needs more builders than breakers. He looked out at the magnolia tree again. Guess this tree's been building too. Even through all the storms. That hit me deeper than I expected. The wind shifted, carrying petals down around us like confetti. Kayla leaned against the railing, smiling. Mama, you should tell him about the first time Daddy planted that tree. I hesitated, but nodded. It was summer of '89. He said he wanted something that would remind us both that roots matter more than flowers. That love needs time to grow. He meant it then. Marcus nodded slowly. Maybe he got one thing right. His words landed soft but sure. For the next hour, we talked about his school, his drawings, the world. I found myself laughing more than I had in months. The sound of his voice didn't sting anymore. It soothed. When it was time for them to leave, Marcus looked back at me from the car window. Thank you for letting me come, Miss Lorraine. I walked closer, resting a hand on the door. You don't have to thank me, baby. You just come back. He smiled. I'd like that. As the car drove away, I turned back toward the house. The magnolia petals drifted down like snow, soft and steady. I reached out, caught one in my palm and whispered to the wind, I forgive you, Marvin. Not for you, but for me, for us. The sun dipped low behind the trees, and for the first time in years, my porch didn't feel haunted. It felt like home again.
That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet and my mind wouldn't stop running. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face, that mix of innocence and pain that reminded me so much of Marvin. But this boy wasn't a ghost of my past. He was flesh and future. I got up and made myself some chamomile tea. The kitchen clock ticked softly. The air smelled faintly of lemons and magnolia from the open window. That tree was still glowing in the moonlight, like it was keeping watch. Kayla came in quietly, barefoot, her robe loosely tied. You're up too? She asked. Couldn't sleep, I said. Too much on my mind. She sat down across from me, cupping her mug with both hands. The lines around her eyes looked deeper tonight. Marcus really liked being here, Mama, she said softly. He told me in the car that it felt peaceful. I nodded, smiling faintly. He's a good boy, Kayla. A bit too grown for his age, though. You've done a fine job with him. Kayla looked down. It wasn't easy. There were times I thought about telling him who his father was, but I couldn't do that to him. Not after the way Marvin left us. I studied her face. Does he know anything? She shook her head. Just that his dad wasn't around. He doesn't even have a picture. Silence filled the space between us. The kind of silence that carries decades of hurt. Kayla, I said carefully, I think he's strong enough now to know the truth. He deserves that. He's already been carrying pieces of it without knowing what they mean. She looked up sharply, eyes glistening. And what then, Mama? He'll hate me for keeping it from him, or he'll hate Marvin for not being there. Either way, hate wins. Her words hit me deep because I knew that kind of hate. It had lived in me for years, a slow burning coal I didn't know how to put out. Maybe he won't hate anybody, I said finally. Maybe he'll understand we all made choices trying to protect him. Kayla rubbed her forehead, sighing. I wanted to protect you too, Mama. I didn't want you to see him, to look at Marvin's son and remember what he did. That confession sat heavy in the room. My chest tightened. So all these years you carried that secret from me? She nodded, tears finally spilling out. I thought I was doing the right thing. I reached across the table and took her hand. You were a child, baby. You shouldn't have had to protect me from the truth. Her shoulders shook as she cried, years of guilt pouring out. I moved beside her, held her the way I used to when she was little. You did what you had to do to survive, I whispered. Now it's time to let it go. She pulled back, wiping her tears. What about you, Mama? Have you really let it go? That question sliced through me. I thought about Marvin's last letter, about the way I used to curse his name in my prayers, about the bitterness that crept into my laughter.
I'm trying, I said softly. Lord knows I'm trying. We sat like that until the clock struck midnight. The house hummed with quiet forgiveness, fragile but real. Before heading to bed, Kayla turned to me. I think I'll tell him, Mama. Not everything, not yet, but enough. I nodded. He'll listen to you. He's got your heart. When she went upstairs, I stood by the window and looked at the magnolia tree again. Its petals were drifting down like snow in the silver moonlight. It hit me then. That tree had seen it all. The love, the lies, the betrayal, the healing. And through it all, it never stopped blooming. As I sipped my tea, I whispered, maybe that's what family really is. Roots holding steady, even when the branches break.
The next morning, the house smelled like cinnamon and courage. I was up early, baking biscuits. Not because we needed them, but because it's what I do when my heart's bracing for a storm. The sun slid through the lace curtains, casting soft gold across the kitchen. Everything looked calm, but inside me a quiet trembling began. Kayla came downstairs around 8, wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater. She had that determined look I knew too well. Chin high, eyes steady. Mama, she said, I'm going to tell Marcus today, before breakfast. I nodded, wiping my hands on a towel. You want me here? She hesitated. Maybe sit close, but let me speak first. We didn't have to wait long. Marcus came in half awake, his curls sticking up, wearing one of my old Alabama sweatshirts. He yawned, grinned, and said, Morning, Grandma. Smells amazing. He dropped a quick kiss on my cheek before grabbing a biscuit. I smiled. Sit down, sugar. Your mama's got something to tell you. He froze a little biscuit halfway to his mouth. Everything okay? Kayla's hands twisted in her lap. Yeah, baby, everything's okay. It's just there's something I should have told you a long time ago. His eyes darted between us. You're scaring me. No, she said quickly. It's not like that. It's about your father. The room went still. The ticking of the kitchen clock grew louder, the kind of sound that stretches seconds into years. Marcus leaned forward. My father. I know what you thought, Kayla said gently, that he was gone, that he didn't want to be around. But the truth is more complicated than that. He frowned. So what's the truth? Kayla's voice trembled but didn't break. Your father's name was Marvin Mitchell. He blinked, confused. Mitchell? That's Grandma's last name. I swallowed hard, my hands gripping the edge of the counter. The air between us thickened. Kayla nodded. Yes, because Marvin was my father, your grandfather. Marcus's face went pale. Wait, what? My grandfather? His voice cracked like a branch under too much weight. You saying my dad was your... He stopped, shaking his head. That's crazy, Mama. Kayla's tears fell silently. I know, baby. I know how it sounds. I was young and he wasn't the man I thought he was. He hurt people, lied to us all. I thought keeping the truth from you would protect you, but lies don't protect. They just grow roots. Marcus pushed away from the table, pacing. You mean to tell me I'm his son? The same man Grandma cried over for years? The man who left y'all? I stepped in quietly, my voice steady but tender. Yes, baby, and none of that's your fault. You didn't choose where you came from, but you can choose where you go next. He turned to me, his chest rising fast, anger mixing with heartbreak. You knew? Yes, I said softly. I found out not long ago. Your mama didn't do it to hurt you, Marcus. She did it to save you. He shook his head. Save me from what? From my own blood? Kayla stood, reaching out, but he pulled back. You don't understand, she said. I didn't want you growing up with his shadow over you. Too late, he muttered, eyes glistening. That shadow's all I see now. He walked out to the porch, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed through the house like thunder after lightning. Kayla crumbled into a chair, sobbing. I ruined everything. I came behind her, resting my hands on her shoulders. No, you didn't. You just brought the truth into the light.
Now he has to find his way through it. We sat in silence for a long while, the magnolia branches brushing against the window as if the world was listening. Finally, Kayla whispered, "He'll hate me for this." I shook my head. "No, he'll hurt, he'll rage, but he'll understand. He's your son. He's got too much of your heart not to." Through the window, I saw Marcus standing under the magnolia tree, staring up at it, chest rising heavy. He kicked at the dirt, then dropped to his knees. His hands dug into the soil like he was searching for roots that could tell him who he really was. And in that moment, I realized, maybe truth doesn't heal right away. Maybe it has to bleed a little first.
The house was quiet after Marcus walked out. Too quiet, like the air was holding his breath. Kayla sat at the table, her hand still clutching a cold cup of coffee. She hadn't said a word in almost an hour. I could see the girl she used to be, trapped under all that guilt, the same way I'd been trapped under my own once. I finally said softly, "You can't fix his hurt, baby. You can only tell him the truth and stand still while he wrestles with it." Kayla's eyes lifted, rimmed red. "I don't even know who I am anymore, Mama. I spent my whole life trying to protect Marcus from Marvin, but maybe I was just protecting myself. I couldn't stand the idea that my child came from a man who broke me." I nodded slowly. "You can love a child even if the soil they came from was poisoned. Love don't erase what's broken. It just grows around it." Outside, the wind picked up, carrying that sweet magnolia scent. I watched through the window. Marcus was still under that tree. He had his head bowed, both hands pressed into the earth like he was praying or fighting something invisible. I walked out to him. The boards on the porch creaked, and he looked up, his face streaked with tears and sweat. He didn't move when I got closer, so I knelt right beside him, my knees pressing into the cool dirt. "Grandma," he whispered, voice cracked and raw. "All this time, my mama lied to me, and you kept it too?" I took a long breath. "I did, and I'll carry that weight. But sometimes the truth takes its time to show itself, baby. You deserve better, and I'm sorry we didn't give it to you sooner." He swallowed hard, his voice trembling. "He ruined everything, didn't he? Marvin, he hurt both of you." I nodded. "He did. He took things he had no right to. But that's not your legacy, Marcus. That's his sin. You got a choice now, to break that chain or drag it." He stared at the ground, then at his hands, big, strong, trembling. "I don't even know where to start." "Right here," I said, pointing to the soil beneath us. "You start where your roots are. You learn them. You name the pain, then you let it go." For a long moment, he just breathed, slow, shaky breaths. Then he whispered, "I'm angry at her, but I still love her." I smiled faintly. "That's how love works, Davy. It don't die easy. It bends, bruises, sometimes breaks, but if it's real, it finds its way back." He nodded, and we sat there in silence, the magnolia petals drifting down like tiny blessings. When we went back inside, Kayla was still at the table. She looked up, scared. "Is he okay?" Marcus stopped in the doorway, his voice low but steady. "I don't know yet, but I want to be." Kayla stood, her hands trembling. "I'm sorry, Marcus, for all of it, for letting my shame become your silence." He took a long step forward, then another, until he stood right in front of her. "I can't forgive you yet," he said, his voice cracking, "but I don't hate you either." Tears welled in her eyes, and she whispered, "That's enough for now." He nodded, and the two of them stood there, not touching, not talking, just breathing in the same space for the first time since the truth came out. I turned away, giving them that moment. My eyes landed on the picture on the wall, one of all three of us taken years ago, laughing on this very porch. I ran my fingers along the frame and whispered, "Maybe this family ain't perfect, Lord, but we're still here." That night, the house felt lighter, like a window had been opened after years of stale air. I lay in bed listening to the wind whisper through the magnolia tree, and I thought about how roots don't just hold you down. Sometimes they keep you steady when everything else starts to fall apart.
The morning light came in slow and gentle, slipping through the lace curtains like it was afraid to wake us too soon. I sat on the porch with my coffee, same as I have for years. But everything felt different, lighter somehow. The magnolia tree shimmered with dew, petals glistening like small pearls scattered across the yard. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the ache in my chest when I looked at it. I felt peace. Marcus came out first,
He had that tired look of a man who seemed too much too young, but his eyes were clearer. He wore his hoodie and jeans, hands tucked in the pockets, his posture softer than yesterday. "Morning, Grandma," he said, voice low but easy. "Morning, baby." I smiled. "You sleep any?" He nodded, a little. "Me and Mama talked last night." I raised an eyebrow, but didn't push. "That's so." He hesitated, then looked out at the magnolia. "She told me everything. The part she never said before, about how she got away, how she built everything from nothing, how she promised herself I'd never see the kind of pain she did." I waited, letting him take his time. "And what you think about all that?" He shrugged, the corner of his mouth twitching. "I think she's stronger than I ever gave her credit for, and I think I get why she stayed quiet. Don't mean it was right, but I get it." That was all I needed to hear. Understanding doesn't fix the past, but it starts the healing. Kayla joined us a few minutes later, her hair tied back, wearing her old university sweatshirt and jeans. She looked tired but softer, like someone finally let go of a heavy weight. When she saw Marcus, she froze, just for a second, then smiled small. "Morning, baby." He nodded back. "Morning, Mama." I sipped my coffee and hid my grin behind the rim. "Well now, look at us. 3 generations of Hayes, all standing in the same light." Kayla chuckled quietly. "That tree's still blooming, like it don't know what time of year it is." "Because it knows how to survive," I said. "Magnolias don't bloom for show. They bloom for proof, to remind us that beauty can live in the same soil as sorrow." Marcus looked up at the branches, the morning sun catching in his eyes. "Guess that's us then." "Yes, Lord," I said softly. "That's us." Later that day, we worked in the yard together. Marcus helped me trim the bushes while Kayla replanted some flowers that had wilted from the neglect. It wasn't grand or dramatic. No music swelled, no tears fell, just a quiet rhythm of ordinary life finding its way back. When evening came, I lit a candle under the magnolia tree, a small tradition of mine. This time, Kayla and Marcus came out with me. We stood there together, the soft flame flickering against the dusk, 3 shadows cast long across the grass. I whispered, "For what was lost, and for what still grows." Kayla took Marcus's hand, and he didn't pull away. Her voice trembled, "For what we'll never forget, but won't let define us." Then Marcus spoke, his words like a prayer, for what we're going to build next. We stayed there until the stars came out. No words, just the hum of cicadas and the rustle of the magnolia leaves above us. The same tree that had seen betrayal, grief, silence, and now forgiveness. When we finally went in fried, I paused at the door and looked back one last time. The tree glowed faintly in the moonlight, and I felt something stirred deep in my chest, something old and warm. Maybe love doesn't die. Maybe it just changes its shape and waits for us to find it again. As I climbed into bed, I thought about the women in my family, my mama, Kayla, me, all of us bent by life, but never broken. I thought about the men we lost and the boys we raised and the lessons we carried forward. And before I drifted off, I whispered into the dark, "We choose what to keep, the pain, the truth, the love, and baby, we keep going." Outside, the magnolia tree swayed in the breeze, steady, beautiful, eternal. And for the first time in years, I slept without dreams.